What you are about to see is a speech given by Paul Hellyer, a former defence minister for Canada in the 1960s. What he says is simply astonishing and would be immediately thrown out as nonsense by anyone without his credibility. Here is his keynote speech given at the X conference in 2008.
Decades ago, visitors from other planets warned us about where we were headed and offered to help. But instead, we, or at least some of us, interpreted their visits as a threat and decided to shoot first and ask questions after. The inevitable result was that some of our planes were lost, but how many were due to retaliation and how many were as a result of our own stupidity is a moot point. Wilbert Smith, one of the first Canadians to take an active interest in the subject of UFOs, asked the visitors about the accidental destruction of our aircraft by flying into the vicinity of a flying saucer. The response, and this is Wilbur's words, "We were informed that although a few of our aircraft had come to an unfortunate end by what they considered the colossal stupidity of our pilots, they were now taking corrective measures to avoid our aircraft. I asked them," and this is still Smith, "I asked them what happened, and they said, well, the fields around the saucers in order to hold them up, in order to produce the gravity differential, the time field differentials which were necessary to operate the ship. These sometimes produced field combinations which reduced the strength of materials to the point where they were no longer strong enough to carry the loads that the materials were expected to carry. Now, as we know, aircraft, particularly the military type, are built with a rather small factor of safety. And in these regions of reduced binding, the materials are no longer strong enough to carry the load, and the craft simply comes apart." And when I read that, I was reminded of the late, great soprano Lily Pons, who used to smash crystal goblets with her high C. She would direct the sound at them, and something in the sound waves would change the structure of the glass, and it would fly apart. Well, this didn't satisfy our military chiefs, who must have thought that it was more important to secure American nuclear superiority, even though using it would result in the annihilation of us all, than to take the hint and start moving the planet back from the brink of global disaster. They, the military, must have been and still are so paranoid that they feel it necessary to use the visitors' technology to fight them off, rather than welcome them as partners in development, though they may have seconded a few renegades to assist them in what can best be viewed as diabolical developments. Stephen has said that talking about UFOs is passé, and that we should be talking or limiting our talk to exopolitics. Well, Stephen, I agree with you in theory, but in reality we have a problem when official U.S. policy insists that UFOs don't exist. The veil of secrecy must be lifted, and it has to be lifted now, before it is too late. It is ironic that the U.S. would begin a devastating war, allegedly in search of weapons of mass destruction, when the most worrisome developments in this field are occurring in your own backyard. It is ironic that the U.S. should be fighting monstrously expensive wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, allegedly to bring democracy to those two countries, when it itself can no longer legitimately claim to be called a democracy, when trillions, and I mean thousands of billions of dollars have been spent on projects about which both the Congress and the Commander-in-Chief have been kept deliberately in the dark. How much has been accomplished in 60 years of feverish activity by some of the most educated minds in the United States? Has America developed flying saucers that are visually indistinguishable from the visitors, as alleged? And if so, what do they propose to do with them? Even more critical, what progress has been made in the development of clean energy sources that could conceivably replace fossil fuels and save the planet from becoming a veritable wasteland? Well, who has the answers? Someone does, but apparently they aren't telling either secretaries of defense or presidents because they don't have, quote, a need to know. In a story told by Dr. Stephen Greer, President Clinton was asked a question by White House reporter Sarah McClendon about why he didn't do something about disclosure. And Clinton replied, "Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it." Excuse me, doesn't the Commander-in-Chief and the person who allegedly has their finger on the nuclear trigger have a right to know what his subordinates are doing? The people of the United States who have paid the bills have the right to know. The people of the world demand to know because it is our descendants too whose lives are in mortal danger. It is time for the people of the United States to launch a new war against the evil of lies, deceit, and darkness, and go all out to win the victory of truth and transparency and light. Thank you.
Graduated credentials. Commander Fravor, we have all seen the floating Tic Tac video that you engaged with on November 14th, 2004. Can you briefly talk about why you were off the coast of San Diego that day?
Yeah, we were at a workup with all the battle groups, so we integrate the ships with the carrier, the air wing with the carrier, and we start working. So we were doing an air-to-air defense to hone not only our skills, but those of the USS Princeton when they had been tracking them for 2 weeks. The problem was that there was never manned aircraft airborne when they were tracking them, and this was the first day, and unfortunately we were the ones airborne and went and saw it.
Do you remember the weather that day? Was it cloudy or windy or anything out of the ordinary on the Pacific coast?
It was actually, if you're familiar with San Diego, it was a perfect day. Light winds, no whitecaps, clear skies, not a cloud. It was, for flying, it was the best.
Now, is it true that you saw, in your words, a 40-foot flying tic-tac-shaped object?
That's correct. Or for some people that can't know what a tic-tac is, it's a giant flying propane tank.
Fair enough. Did this object come up on radar or interfere with your radar or the USS Princeton?
The Princeton tracked it, the Nimitz tracked it, the E-2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars. Our fire control radars never picked it up. The other airplane that took the video did get it on a radar. As soon as it tried to lock it jammed the radar, spit the lock, and he's rapidly switched over to the targeting pod, which you can do in the F-18.
From what you saw that day and what you've seen on video, did you see any source of propulsion from the flying object, including on any potential thermal scans from your aircraft?
No, there's none. There's no IR plume coming out, and Chad, who took the video, went through all the EO, which is black and white TV, and the IR modes, and there's no visible signs of propulsion. It's just sitting in space at 20,000 feet.
In your career, have you ever seen a propulsion system that creates no thermal exhaust?
No.
Can you describe how the aircraft maneuvered?
Abruptly, very determinate. It knew exactly what it was doing. It was aware of our presence, and it had acceleration rates. I mean, it went from 0 to matching our speed in no time at all.
Now, if the fastest plane on Earth was trying to do these maneuvers that you saw, would it be capable of doing that?
No, not even close.
And just to confirm, this object had no wings, correct?
No wings.
Now, was the aircraft that you were flying, was it armed?
No, it never felt threatened at all.
If the aircraft was armed, do you believe that your aircraft or any aircraft in possession of the United States could have shot the Tic Tac down?
I'd say no. Just on the performance, it would just left in a split second.
It looks like that we have a problem here that needs further investigation.
Yes.
In your belief, is this flying Tic Tac, I mean, is it capable of being the product of any other nation on the Earth?
No, like I said earlier, I think it defies current material science and the ability to develop that much propulsion. And I know there's been some physicists that have done calculations, which is beyond anything that we have.
Well, either the United States has an adversary here in this world that we don't know, or we really have some serious investigations to do.
Tell me about these sightings, what you're hearing.
Okay.
People live here.
Yeah, so last night, starting around 8 o'clock, we started receiving multiple calls from residents about drone activity in the area. Officers went out to investigate. The calls and the sightings continued from 8 o'clock to about 11:15 last night, when the drone activity moved away from us into Cherry Hill. We had varying reports of anywhere between 4 to 8 drones that were flying through the area. They weren't like the normal, drone that somebody would purchase and use in their home. They were large. Some were described as large as like an SUV, had blinking lights on them. We checked the area, we monitored their activity, and up until they left the area. We contacted State Police, Regional Operations Center, to make notification to them of the activity, and also to try to determine, who is operating these drones. At this time, we're still investigating. We have no information of who the drones belong to, what their purpose was. We are looking at possible connections to northern New Jersey that's experiencing the same type of incidents. But we do ask anyone with information about, who's operating these drones, the identity of the drones. They seem to be, larger than, the hobbyist, and due to the number of them, as well, would, classify as most likely not a hobbyist that's out doing these.
Chief, we know this has been going on in North Jersey. I'm curious, what was your reaction when you heard reports here in Nation?
There's definitely concern. We do get reports of drone activity, but they're usually like, ones you purchase, operate. Last night was interesting just because of the wind that was present. One of those small, hobbyist drones wouldn't be able to fly. These larger, professional drone activity that was out there gave greater concern, especially in their ability to navigate the weather.
Any idea who is behind it and what the point of it is? What are they doing?
We don't know. They were operating throughout the township last night, and then moved into Cherry Hill, ultimately heading towards Philadelphia. No, we don't know. They have to be landing somewhere. They're very large, I know we're working with the state police and ultimately with federal authorities to try to figure that out.
And last one, how about the other chiefs in South Jersey? Because I saw I'm in all these different community forums, and everyone's talking about this in different towns. Are you working with the chiefs across the region?
We are, yeah. We're working with, I know Mount Laurel received complaints last night, Cherry Hill received complaints last night, and Medford Township received complaints last night. From what I understand, though, complaints and sightings occurred as far as Ocean County.
Yeah, I saw something online about the exit 135 on the Parkway, and they have video of it.
Oh, did they?
Do you guys have video?
We don't. We just have video that residents submitted, and a lot of that stuff is posted on local social media, but nothing that would give you anything of a clear view. It's dark out. These things have lights on them. You basically see the lights.
Chief, are they hovering over neighborhoods or any certain buildings? Are they targeting a certain area?
Yeah, we did look to see if, they were hovering over critical infrastructure. As of last night, there was at times that they were hovering. There was times that they were moving. We were unable to determine if they were looking at critical infrastructure at that time, but it is something that we're definitely looking at.
And you mentioned state police, and you also mentioned federal authorities. Are you working with the FBI?
We are.
Who's also investigating in North Jersey?
Correct, yes. Yeah, we are.
What's the takeaway here, biggest message to people who look at?
I mean, you know, at night it's going to be hard to capture it. If somebody sees something that, you know, any recording, you know, I would try to get clear pictures of it, clear images of it, and then to share them with us. The more information we can get from them, the more likelihood it's going to be that we're going to be able to rectify this.
Just because I do drones.
Yeah.
FAA, is that a particular outfit you work with? And do they have any indication of anything at all? I mean, I'll bet they could probably see it.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, we're working with them to gather all the information. We have nothing to release right now that's going to be helpful, but we are working with the FAA as well. We were in contact with them throughout last night, and the investigation's going on, continuing to work with them as well.
You have maybe extra patrols out tonight to determine or to be in place in case this happens again?
We are. So we put information out to our police officers today. It's a normal process, just to give them intelligence information. Hey, this is what we kind of know right now. So they're aware of the activity, and yeah, they'll definitely be mindful of that throughout the day and pretty much the weeks to come. If there's any more activity, they'll report it. They were out last night. They were reporting sightings throughout the night, and you know, and trying to determine if we could get, you know, numbers off of them or something that would help us identify who these are.
Because I'm telling your office, you take video pictures too, right?
Yeah, we were trying last night, but again, you're not going to get clear images in the dark with, you know, something that's dark colored, that's lit up. You're just going to really get pictures of the light, and that's not helpful. Yeah.
Do you guys have any kind of, I guess, not to let the cat out of the bag or anything, but would you scramble anything in terms of your own drone people or choppers or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we will work with the state police and the FBI and guidance with that. We don't have anything like that here. Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. No worries. Thanks for coming in.
Sou Astar Shehan, do Comando Intergaláctico, atuando a serviço do Cristo na libertação de vosso planeta. Não há muito mais o que dizer nesses momentos, apenas confirmar em seus corações que tudo já está acontecendo. Muitos pensam que nossa exibição nos céus é para mostrar nossas naves, mas garanto que o propósito é muito maior. Infelizmente, grande parte da população acredita que foram os únicos criados por Deus, mas isso seria um enorme egocentrismo. Então, estamos aqui, principalmente para trazer consciência de que não são os únicos. Vocês ainda precisam colher os frutos de suas ações ao longo da história do planeta. A Terra, hoje, está em total desequilíbrio, e mesmo terras intocadas estão contaminadas. Porém, não estamos aqui para resolver todos os problemas, mas para auxiliá-los no aprendizado e na mudança. Quando o mal for retirado, traremos tecnologia e sabedoria, mas o futuro do planeta estará em suas mãos. Cada um deve fazer sua parte para que a transformação seja completa, e isso inclui a separação entre o joio e o trigo, que já está acontecendo. A evolução será gradual e todos terão a chance de mudar, mesmo que não estejam prontos para ascender aqui. As sombras irão embora, definitivamente, pois aqueles que vibram o mal não poderão permanecer. Mas não será um processo instantâneo. Não será como um estalar de dedos em que todo o mal desaparecerá e apenas seres de luz permanecerão. Será o início de uma nova fase, com tempo e espaço para adaptação. Ainda haverá sementes do mal que precisarão ser transformadas, e cada um terá a chance de aprender a viver em amor e luz, deixando para trás sentimentos mesquinhos. O livre-arbítrio continuará sendo respeitado, e todos terão a oportunidade de se curar e evoluir. Já estamos estabelecendo bases em seu planeta para dar início a esse novo tempo, onde aqueles com corações iluminados se elevarão rapidamente. Entretanto, ninguém deve se achar superior, pois todos terão missões importantes para cumprir. Ser uma alma estelar encarnada neste planeta não é um descanso, mas uma oportunidade de atuar positivamente no processo de transformação. Aqueles que não quiserem vibrar amor e luz, mesmo sendo almas estelares, não permanecerão no planeta. O amor verdadeiro pela humanidade e pelo planeta será o critério para avançar. Estamos aqui, juntos, para planejar e realizar essa nova fase de igualdade, amor e transformação. Vocês têm a capacidade de amar incondicionalmente, e muitos já demonstraram progresso. Agora, é o momento de deixar para trás qualquer desdém ou segregação e abraçar o amor genuíno. Estamos unidos, acertando os últimos detalhes do início dessa próxima etapa. Emanem luz e amor, pois é tudo o que precisam fazer agora. Vocês estão próximos do limiar do final da terceira dimensão. Muitos já acessaram as primeiras oitavas da quarta, mas ainda oscilam devido à inconstância energética, especialmente em momentos de raiva, que não são compatíveis. A quarta dimensão já está limpa, não é mais um umbral. Muitos de vocês já vibram nessa frequência, mas precisam acreditar, aceitar e confiar nisso. Peçam ao seu eu superior e à presença divina que mostrem onde estão, o que são capazes de fazer. Vocês se surpreenderão com as habilidades que já possuem, mas não exercitam por medo ou descrença. A luz está em sua potência máxima, e seus corpos estão se ajustando a isso, causando desorganização que nem sempre deve ser vista como doença. Em vez de se entupirem de remédios, conversem com seus corpos e entendam o que eles estão tentando comunicar. Vivam o aqui e agora em equilíbrio, luz, confiança e reconhecendo o poder que vocês têm.